supporting. It's just when we get so close to the flame, you know, sometimes it gets a little bit hot. But expanding on this philosophical discussion, obviously the awakening's here, thanks to your work, Ron Paul's work, so many others. Globally, humanity has a survival instinct, and through all the propaganda, people know things are going in the wrong direction. What do you expect the establishment to do as the quickening accelerates? I mean, I see them coming in with their counter-quickening, the police state, the drones, the drugging, the, you know, the propaganda. But I only see their intensification validating everything we've done and actually feeding back against them. I mean, I don't just say this to be optimistic. Victory is right in front of us if we just take it in our hands, but people just can't say, oh, well, John Rappaport or G. Edward Griffin or David Icke or somebody else is out there. You know, this revolution of awakening is here, but it's extremely volatile, almost like nitroglycerin.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I love about your work is that you anticipate what they're going to do. You know, not only do you call it when they do it, but you anticipate what's up the road, because, you know, what they're going to do is more false flag operations, obviously. I mean, to create crises, that's their only option, is to try to convince everybody, oh, but there was this threat, and we got, oh, look at what happened over here that we have to react to, and so forth, to keep the pot boiling forever if necessary, to try to rein in the global population under one roof, which is their, you know, that's their crazy, perverted dream. So that's, to me, one of the major things that you're incredibly alert about, and that we all have to be alert about, is people tend to, oh my God, look what's happening over there. We got to do something about that. Yeah, wait a minute. Is that what's really going on over there? Is that what's really happening? Is all of the, you know, crazy stuff that's happening in the Middle East now really the reason to go in there and do something militarily? Or is the whole thing a charade and a delusion from the beginning that's been perpetrated in order to convince us that, you know, we have to be a military empire here and all of that and take control? To me, that's the basic move that they always make, and as they get more desperate, they're going to do that. They're going to invent one crisis after another to try to rope everybody in. That's their main strategy. That's how they're going to try to deal with the awakening. But it's not really going to work. I mean, because as you say, this is more I don't want to sound like you know, a vulture, but I mean, this is food for people who are awake, who say, you see that operation over there? That's a phony operation. This is why they did it. This is what the purpose is. This is what you're telling you. And this is what we really should be doing here or not doing. Don't get sucked into it. And you give people 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 of these, they begin to wake up, man. They say, holy mackerel, man. The world that I've been viewing is mainly a series of operations that have been launched to give me the delusion that I'm living in reality, when this is just concocted.
Exactly, and I found people want reality. It's like the Matrix. Even if it's shabby, it's real, versus the fake wall of glitz. And it's all starting to come to a head. As much as we think this is the quickening now, it's just the quickening towards the quickening towards the quickening, layer after layer towards some fantastic things. And it's our destiny to decide the future. And if good people who recognize the crazy, insane narcissism of the elite, I mean, that's one big realization I've had. And I want your take on this, John, and then any other news items you want to mention here, because I don't want to keep you too long. I know you've got things to do. That we tend to think ruling elites are so smart and so great, and they do hire experts. They are dominant. They are willful. They have a will to power. I mean, I don't want to underestimate them, but there's a lot of nepotism going on. There's a lot of delusion as well within the power structure. That is what's really dangerous, is all the weapons they've got and things, and that history shows they are delusional. That they're really not even that smart. I liken them to cancer. If cancer had a consciousness, it would say, well, I'm taking over the body. I'm in charge. Look, I can do whatever I want. But in 6 months, it's going to kill its host. And that's my message to the ruling class. I mean, you guys have got to know history. You're knocking down all the laws. You can steal a bunch of property and ideas. but you're knocking down firewalls that protect your old corrupt system as well. So in a way, their floundering corruption running out of control is actually going to be their own antibodies that destroy them. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do indeed, and I agree with you that this is all part of a very narcissistic outlook. You know, it's like what they used to call in philosophy solipsism, where, you know, the entire world looks like the way you see it and nothing else. That's all there is. And that's the way they've been for forever, as far as I can see, historically. You know, they're so involved with themselves all the time and their particular crazy vision of things that they don't make good decisions quite a bit of the time. They're not making good decisions even for their own cause. They're killing the goose that lays the golden egg. I mean, what do they think all these mega corporations that are so powerful are going to do when instead of having, let's call it maybe 1 billion people in the world that can buy their products now, there's going to be 500 million because they're driving more and more people into insane poverty with carbon taxes and all this global warming hoax nonsense. What do they think those mega corporations are going to say when all of a sudden they say, we could produce 50 times as many cars on our assembly lines as we can sell because all of a sudden you idiots have driven so many people into extreme poverty in the world that nobody can buy our products anymore.
And they've talked about that, though. They plan to shift to the new economy of drones, combat robots, and technicians to make sure they're working as a new war economy to exterminate us. And that's their answer in the post-industrial world, is the future doesn't need us. I mean, do most of the minions serving the system think they're going to have a place at this technotronic, biomechanical hell?
I don't think so. I mean, they might think so, but they're certainly not. But, I just don't think that no matter how they shift into perpetual wartime economy, that's really going to make up the difference between what these multinational mega corporations, I'm talking about all of them, think is in their rosy future for selling their products all over the world. Then they're going to come to a crash. They really are. I mean, I don't think okay, so you want to make another 50,000 or 100,000 drones? Yeah, okay, maybe you can get GM to do that for you and they don't care about cars anymore for a while, but eventually it's going to come back to haunt them badly because they really, in their narcissism, they have this dream, some of these real maniacs like Prince Charles, I'm living in a country club, and it's a wonderful thing with the golf courses and forests and animals and very few humans, and it's all just a dream, and we've eliminated, so many people that we're not bothered by that anymore. And then all of a sudden, some of his buddies say, Charlie, we run these corporations. We can't sell anything anymore to anybody because, you've won the game with your insane vision of narcissistic utopia, and economies have crashed long ago, in case you've noticed. I mean, I'm just sort of making up a script here, but there are people inside the power elite who understand this already, that they're the less crazy ones, shall we say, are looking at the more crazy ones and saying, we got to stop these people. They're taking us all completely down the toilet. The whole planet is going down the toilet. And this is where I think, as you say, these guys are not that smart. They make mistakes and screw-ups all the time.
Yeah, they've just got the power to issue currency and credit, and they've been in control so long, and we're apathetic, it seems like they're invincible. The truth is, the greatest danger is these nuts destroying us. I want to bring up a weird article, just because I first saw this 15 years ago and didn't believe it, and then later it was on the mainstream news, and I confirmed it, that it's not just German royalty that runs England, because the media says, okay, they're Saxe-Coburg-Gothas, that they're really from Romania and Hungary and places, and I'm not knocking those folks overall, but the point is that Prince Charles, his mother, all of them, the direct line is to Vlad the Impaler. And then I learned that he lives half the year in Transylvania and actually lives in one of Dracula's own castles. Folks, I'm not kidding. Vlad the Impaler we're not saying they're real vampires. I'm just saying these legends are always connected to things. And then I learned that when royalty or nobles die, and this is actually well, I mean, here's a mainstream news article right here on it. 100 vampire graves discovered. Reuters, AP, they all reported on it. This particular article is out of Newsfeed, Time Magazine, time.com. And they dig up royalty in Transylvania, and they have spikes in their heart. Now, obviously, I'm not saying they're real vampires, but here's Associated Press. Prince Charles relaxes on trip to Transylvania after Diamond Jubilee. And again, this is an article about how he loves to stay there. What is going on in there? I mean, where do these legends come from? Because if you want to describe the globalists, they are like social vampires, cultural vampires, warmongering vampires, psychic vampires. But now there's this obsession with vampirism and all of this in the culture. And then I trace it back, and I have like Daily Mail articles where the royal family has groom of the stool. They didn't really get rid of it, and they've got and they're caught, you know, even 100 years ago eating body parts. That, you know, Daily Mail. I mean, I guess look at Caligula, married his horse, Nero. I guess that's what elites do. What is this from your perspective?
It's some kind of, I'll use the word inbreeding, and I guess, I mean, it's physical inbreeding, but to me, it's a form of extreme isolationism over the centuries, these families that are so removed from everybody else. I mean, I've known a few people on the fringes of this in my life. Would you like to come over to my house, you know, during the Christmas vacation? And I go over to this house, and it's like, you know, walking into another world of tremendous luxury that has the feeling that you're in a mausoleum or an insane asylum. And the people give you that sensation. Hello. You know, I mean, as if they've been living in a mausoleum museum for centuries. Who are these people? They have a lot of power, but they're so isolated from generation to generation. And in my life, in my own experience even, if you isolate people long enough, especially if they have, you know, privilege, so they're not starving to death, they're living very comfortably, they go insane. They develop all kinds of bizarre fantasies and obsessions and phobias because they're just so out of touch with reality for so long, and they begin to grab onto myths and legends about blood, you know, because they've been taught about bloodlines, and so, oh, blood, yes, blood, oh, yes. It's like a desperate attempt on their part to relate in a completely psychotic way to what they think the world is. And of course, it isn't that at all, but they develop. I mean, I've seen this happen in people who end up, you know, unfortunately under the care of psychiatrists who then drug them and shock them to death. But before that even happens, they're very unstable, very wealthy, very unstable, very privileged, very isolated. And when you talk to them, they sound like they're talking from another dimension. They're just totally out of touch with reality. They're obsessed, they're phobic, they're living in fantasy
John, I am
land.
always, and I don't just kiss up to most of my guests like this, I'm always amazed by your research, your depth of understanding, because what you're saying adds to my historical research. I want you to add to this, then we'll move on to any other tidbits you want to impart, because I've been asking all the questions. But I can just bring up something random like this, and you're spot on with it, and then expand even on, you know, my limited knowledge. I have learned that in almost every culture, syphilis, because the royalty and the wealthy, the priest class, were having sex with the local temple prostitutes, the rest of it. Syphilis, of course, causes mental illness, psychotic outbreaks. Jack the Ripper, the prince, had it. Back then, the only treatment was another toxic poison that made you even more insane, but did limit the growth of the microbes in the brain that literally honeycomb it out. And that, of course, is arsenic. They've dug up the Egyptian royals. They've dug them all up. And the inbreeding, deformed, almost all of them had syphilis, even at birth, syphilis, you know, being passed on many times. Syphilitic brains and inbreeding